The emergency staff meeting at the Army NCO Academy erupted when Command Sergeant Major Robert "Doc" Mitchell stood to challenge the training assessment. "Ma'am, you're addressing symptoms rather than the underlying tactical education failure," Doc said from his back row contractor seat. Major Lisa Santos's response was swift and brutal. "That's enough. Security, escort him out now." Captain James Wright leaned back with obvious amusement. "Maybe stick to cleaning whiteboards and let actual military personnel handle tactical development." Lieutenant Colonel Barnes chimed in loudly. "Civilian instructors shouldn't even be in classified briefings. This is exactly why contractors need to know their place. Remove all civilian personnel immediately," Colonel Patricia Hayes ordered. "This discussion requires actual military experience, not civilian theories." As the MPs flanked Doc and began escorting him toward the door, his voice carried across the silent room. "Command Sergeant Major Robert Mitchell, United States Army Special Forces. 26 years, developing tactical training for combat operations." The MPs stopped walking. The room went dead silent. For 4 years, Doc had endured systematic dismissal from officers who never bothered to ask about his background. The transition from Command Sergeant Major to civilian contractor had destroyed his identity and self-worth. Medical retirement from an IED explosion in Afghanistan left him with chronic pain and PTSD. His wife Sarah filed for divorce 6 months later, unable to cope with his struggles. "You're not the man I married." The Army took that man away. She moved to Colorado with their daughter Ashley. Now Doc lived alone in a cramped apartment, taking pain medication and attending VA counseling twice weekly. His disability compensation barely covered expenses, while mounting medical bills forced him into contracting work. Every day reinforced his worthlessness as young officers dismissed his expertise while soldiers received inadequate training that could cost lives. The crisis meeting addressed catastrophic failure rates. 72% of graduating NCOs were failing combat readiness assessments. In simulated scenarios, NCOs took 4 minutes to make decisions requiring immediate response. 60% failed threat assessment. 85% couldn't coordinate multi-team operations under stress. Command had given 90 days to demonstrate improvement or face academy closure. The proposed solutions, more classroom hours, modified testing, increased drills, would only reinforce the theoretical approach already proving inadequate. When Doc tried to explain these concerns, Major Santos cut him off. "We need real military solutions from people who understand modern combat, not civilian theories from someone who's been out of service for years." You're a command sergeant major," Major Santos stammered, her face draining of color. "Special Forces Training Development Specialist," Doc continued. "I developed tactical curricula currently used by 3 Special Operations Training Commands." Captain Wright looked physically sick. "Sir, oh God, we had no idea." Lieutenant Colonel Barnes snapped to attention, his face flushed. "Command Sergeant Major, I owe you a formal apology, sir. My behavior has been completely inappropriate." The MPs stepped back and came to attention. Officers throughout the room rose, understanding they were in the presence of one of the Army's most senior NCOs. "Because every time veterans try to contribute, we're told civilian employment excludes us from military decisions," Doc replied, his voice carrying 4 years of accumulated frustration. Major Santos was visibly shaken. "Sir, if I had known your rank—" "Ma'am, respect shouldn't require rank identification," Doc responded quietly. "Command Sergeant Major Mitchell," Colonel Hayes said, her tone transformed. "What's your assessment of our failures?" Doc's analysis was precise. Classroom instruction doesn't develop decision-making under combat stress. NCOs learn theoretical principles, but not practical application under pressure. He moved to the whiteboard. "In Afghanistan, I trained operations where NCOs made split-second decisions affecting hundreds of soldiers. We simulated actual combat conditions, noise, confusion, incomplete information, life or death consequences." Major Santos listened with obvious respect. "How would you modify our approach?" "Scenario-based tactical training that replicates combat conditions. NCOs practice decision-making under stress with realistic consequences." Captain Wright, humbled, asked, "Sir, would you develop these scenarios? I realize I have no right to ask after my behavior. I didn't reveal my background for apologies. I did it because soldiers' lives depend on training quality, and I've watched inadequate preparation for 4 years. Under Doc's guidance, the Academy implemented tactical training, addressing real combat requirements. Scenario-based training placed NCOs in realistic combat simulations with incomplete information, time pressure, and consequences for poor decisions. Sergeant First Class Maria Rodriguez approached Doc after training. "Command Sergeant Major, your training saved my life in Kandahar. When my convoy was ambushed, the decision-making skills you taught helped me get my soldiers home safely." Staff Sergeant David Kim wrote from Iraq, "Sir, your tactical scenarios gave me confidence to lead under fire. My platoon completed a complex rescue operation because I knew how to make decisions under pressure." 3 months into the new training program, Sergeant First Class Robert Taylor returned from a deployment in Syria and visited Doc's office personally. His left arm was in a sling from a recent firefight. "Command Sergeant Major," Taylor said, his voice emotional, "I need to thank you in person. Your tactical training saved my entire squad last month. We were separated from our unit during a complex attack. Using the decision-making process you taught us, I was able to assess threats, establish defensive positions, and coordinate extraction under fire. Every one of my soldiers made it home because of what you taught me." Doc looked at the young NCO's injury. "Sergeant, you made those decisions under fire. The training just gave you confidence in your own capabilities. Sir, before your program, I would have hesitated. That hesitation could have cost lives. Your scenarios prepared me for the real thing." Another visit came from Staff Sergeant Jennifer Lopez, recently returned from Afghanistan. "Command Sergeant Major, I wanted you to see this." She handed Doc a letter from her platoon's medic. "Sergeant Lopez's tactical leadership during our medical evacuation under fire saved 2 wounded soldiers. Her quick thinking and calm decision-making under extreme pressure were exceptional. The scenario training you developed prepared me for that moment," Lopez explained. "When real bullets started flying, I wasn't paralyzed by fear because I'd already practiced making life or death decisions under stress." Within 6 weeks, tactical assessment scores improved by 340%. More importantly, feedback from operational units confirmed NCOs were demonstrating significantly improved combat leadership effectiveness in actual deployments. During the Academy's quarterly graduation ceremony, Colonel Hayes invited Doc to address the graduating NCO class. "Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to meet the man whose tactical training expertise has transformed your preparation for combat leadership. Command Sergeant Major Mitchell's scenarios may have saved your lives before you even deploy." 3 months later, the Academy had avoided investigation and become a model for tactical training throughout the Army education system. 6 months after Doc's revelation, Captain Wright was conducting his own tactical scenario training session. Doc observed from the back of the classroom as Wright implemented the stress-based learning methods with remarkable skill. "Remember," Wright told his NCO students, "in combat, you won't have perfect information or unlimited time. This scenario requires immediate assessment and action under pressure." Doc watched Wright guide the students through a complex urban warfare simulation, using the same techniques Doc had developed. The students responded with engagement and confidence that had been missing from traditional classroom instruction. After the session, Wright approached Doc. "Command Sergeant Major, I wanted you to see that I'm not just apologizing for my past behavior. I'm actively working to become the instructor you tried to help me become from the beginning." "You're doing excellent work, Captain," Doc observed. "These NCOs are receiving the kind of tactical preparation that will serve them well in combat." "Sir, I have a confession," Wright said, his voice sincere. "I've been using your methodology in all my training sessions now. The student feedback is overwhelmingly positive, and I can see the difference in their confidence levels." Doc smiled. "The student becomes the teacher. That's exactly how it should work." Wright's transformation was complete, from dismissive young officer to dedicated instructor implementing Doc's tactical training innovations with genuine understanding and skill. That evening, Doc sat in his apartment, surrounded by thank you letters from NCOs worldwide. Each validated that his struggle had been worthwhile. One from Afghanistan. "Command Sergeant Major, Because of your training, I brought all my soldiers home from a complex ambush. Thank you for not giving up on us. Another from Iraq. Sir, your decision-making training allowed my team to extract civilians under fire. Your preparation gave me confidence when theoretical knowledge would have failed. 6 months later, Doc's position as Senior Tactical Training Developer properly reflected his qualifications. The isolation defining his transition was replaced by meaningful work honoring his experience. Captain Wright had become his most dedicated student. Command Sergeant Major, you taught me that respect is earned through competence and character. I was wrong to dismiss you. Major Santos, visibly emotional during a public ceremony, addressed the entire academy. I was completely wrong. I ordered security to remove one of the most qualified tactical trainers in the Army. Command Sergeant Major Mitchell's expertise has transformed our program and saved soldiers' lives. I publicly apologize for my unprofessional behavior and thank him for his patience with our ignorance. Lieutenant Colonel Barnes delivered a formal apology before the assembled staff. I spent months dismissing input from someone whose tactical knowledge exceeds our entire team. My behavior was disgraceful and cost our students valuable opportunities. Doc's transformation catalyzed institutional change throughout military training commands. Thank you letters continued arriving from combat zones, each validating the importance of recognizing expertise regardless of circumstances. His final reflection: for 4 years I watched soldiers receive inadequate preparation because assumptions prevented recognizing available knowledge. The personal cost was devastating, but seeing these leaders succeed makes every struggle worthwhile. The story demonstrated that behind every dismissed individual is someone with valuable contributions and the potential to make life or death differences when given the opportunity. Sometimes, the person you're ordering security to escort out is exactly the expert whose knowledge could save lives. Don't let assumptions about employment status or circumstances prevent you from recognizing the value hiding in plain sight. Titles fade, but true expertise remains. The most qualified person in any room might be the one everyone assumes has the least to offer. In every workplace, every community, every organization, there are people whose background and capabilities far exceed what their current position suggests. The challenge isn't just recognizing expertise when it's revealed, it's creating environments where people feel valued enough to share their knowledge before a crisis forces the truth into the open. The most qualified person in the room might be the one you just dismissed as irrelevant. If you enjoyed this story, click the like button and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next one.